Welcome to the Threads of Change Empowering Social Workers podcast. I'm Shawn-Kae Burns, social work educator, UWI Mona. We're excited to have you join us on this transformative journey. Our mission is to inspire and equip social workers to become champions of change, advancing their careers, enhancing their communities, and enriching their lives. Join us as we dive into engaging conversations with social workers, advocates, and change makers exploring the challenges they face, the victories they celebrate, and the impact they create. But we're not just here to talk. No, we're here to take action. Together, let's build community where voices are amplified, where learning is continuous, and where change is not just a possibility, but a reality. Whether you're a social worker or just someone passionate about making difference in people's lives, Threads of Change podcast is for you. The Threads of Change podcast is just for us to change people's lives effectively. Check out our Instagram page at UEMONA Social Work Unit to keep updated. Today, our session will focus on creative change, the arts as a tool for social transformation. And as you guys can see, thank you for joining us. We have a wonderful audience already online. We were already here chatting away as it goes with artists, because we're not going to wait on you to start the show. We're going to start the show and we're going to enjoy the show. So I have a wonderful, wonderful set of panelists. I do have the lovely bios for them. I'm going to do that, but I'm also going to pause and have our panelists just introduce themselves, and also before we get into it and go a deep dive, have a quick synopsis of their art and how they think they empower social change through their art. So we first have Neila Ebhanks. Neila Ebhanks is a dance, video, and textual artist from Kingston, Jamaica. She holds an MA Physical Theatre from Royal Holloway University of London, the University of Surrey, a bachelor's in sociology from the University of the West Indies, and a certificate of dance, theatre, and production from the Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts here in Kingston, Jamaica. She's the founder of Jamaican dance aggregation Company. Her diverse Caribbean connections include work with the EMC VPA School of Dance as Director of Studies, as well as with such companies as Continuum Dance Project, the CADCO United Caribbean Dance Force, Ashe Performing Arts, Quilts Performing Arts, Movements Dance Company, the Company Dance Theatre, and the NDTC of Jamaica. She has also represented Jamaica in the Bienal de Danza del Caribe. I know I might have messed that up. The Tobago Contemporary Dance Festival. I cannot pronounce that one. So Neila, you're going to take that one over. Cari Festa, what is that, 13, and Outburst, Queer Arts Festival. Neila Ebhanks has exhibited short film in the EMC VPA School of Visual Arts, Open Faculty Exhibition, and Thou Art Woman Exhibition, Reimagining, Liberating Queer Futures. She's also the co-host of In the Caribbean Arts and Culture podcast at the Talawa Table. So Neila, we're going to start with you. If you could just give us a quick synopsis of what you believe your art to be, and just quickly, how you think it really can empower social change.
Hi, everybody. It's so good to be here again, refreshed. My art is movement-based for sure. Some people may say it's not dance, to be honest with you. It's physical theater. It is body-based, and it is staged anywhere. I love things that are site-specific, things that are improvisational, things that take place when nobody expects it. But I also love proscenium and other kinds of staged spaces where an audience is allowed to feel comfortable in the mass and allowed to feel because they are not alone and they see things and they see catharsis. So, all kinds of presentation of art, I have no problem with. Love circus arts, of all that kind of stuff. But primarily, I am a movement-based artist. Yes, I do textual work. Yes, I do. I experiment with digital film and digital modalities, but primarily I'm a movement artist, movement and dance artist. In terms of social change, I mean, every social change begins with personal change, right? And there is nothing, I think, maybe outside of a traumatic experience like involvement in an art form, that can change you, like fundamentally change who you are. There is something, particularly when you start young enough, you don't have to be doing it to try to become the best at it or professional, but the things that it teaches you along the way, or what we call in pedagogy, the hidden curriculum of it, help you to become just a better human. Body-based arts, particularly dance, have that ability to allow you to learn confidence in your body and in gaining skill without competition. So it's not like team sports or sports in that way. And then that allows you to be able to also envision different kinds of things and feel positive about your visions of newness. For change, it makes you open to new ways of thinking and new ways of doing things. And it also gives you the confidence to speak if something you know is wrong is happening. So yeah, whatever I am doing in the arts, and I have done as a participant in and as a creator, works towards social change, particularly through a personal change influence, I think. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Neila. So I'm going to just hodgepodge around the board. And you were also mentioned being a textual and a visual artist as well, Neila. So I'm going to jump to our, shall I say, textual and visual artists in the room. We have Leslie Ann Belnavis Elliot. MS ATR, which means a registered art therapist and photographer from and based in Jamaica. She has a Master's of Science degree in art therapy and Bachelor of Science degree in studio art form from the Florida State University. She has conducted creative arts-based clinical assessments and art therapy sessions with clients of various ages, abilities, presenting and concerns and socioeconomic backgrounds in a variety of locations, including schools, community centers, and projects and private practice. Boy, the words them. And private practice. She's currently based at the University of the West Indies Mona Campus Health Center, offering individual and group services, both in person and via telehealth, to persons dealing with grief, trauma, stress, anxiety, depression, and family work-related concerns and creative self-care workshops. That's awesome. As a photographer, Belnavis Elliot has displayed works in England, in the United States, and Jamaica. Her photography is informed by her being an art therapist and having the skillful ability to merge art and psychology and infuse it in different art techniques. She understands some of the concerns persons face and the impact it has on their emotional development and interpersonal well-being. Her photography speaks to social justice issues where she masters the ability to evoke emotional responses and provocative discussions. I love that. Hi, Leslie. How are you today?
Shauna, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you for being here. So, like Neila, I wonder if you could just give us a quick synopsis of what you believe, in your own words, your art to be and how you think it has affected social change.
Okay, so for me, the arts, I'm in a funny space right now. So I'm evolving, being a new mom-ish. And my identity for a long time has always been an art therapist and serving others and giving them space and a voice. So even within that platform, there would be maybe personal social change for somebody, or there might be advocacy in the process of art therapy to express themselves. I did a project a few years ago with some other mental health professionals where we're using quilting as a form of advocacy for survivors in state care violence. So that's one element. But for my personal self, I'm revisiting my photography. And as you can see, there's a piece behind me. It's a social justice piece called The Launderers, and it evokes a conversation. It's shifted a little bit so viewers can see it. It's in a washing machine, and it's the colors of our political party. Now, somebody might be like, well, which side you on? What you're trying to? No, it's just a conversation. It's a conversation. There's money. So, Michael, I'm not sure. So there's money being washed in the washing machine. And so it talks about like political relationships, what you call that, when corruption, and what is, you know, starting a conversation, invoking a conversation. And so the art can play this role where if you don't have words, the visual piece can, the symbolism can start a conversation or challenge you to push forward, to make a message, to have a discussion. And so that's what I'd say about the arts and my art form.
And your art, yes, thank you, awesome. All right, thank you so much, Leslie. And so let us get to the man, and to the man of the hour. I'm not gonna say it's my friend, but it's my friend. The recently minted Dr. Michael Holgate, with over 20 years in theater, dance, music, film, and writing, is the Director of Events and Creative Arts Management and the head of the Philip Sherlock Center for the Creative Arts at the University of the West Indies, Mona campus. He's also the Artistic Director of the Ashe Company. He has been an Artistic Director for the Jamaica Independence Grand Galas from 2022 to 2024, and is a resident judge on TVJ's All Together Sing. Holgate is an author of the novel Night of the Indigo. He holds a BA in Literature and English, as well as an MPhil, and recently completed his PhD in Cultural Studies, woo, from the University of the West Indies. His body of work includes writing, directing, and choreographing multi-award winning musical theater productions, including Garvey the Musical, and many of his productions emerge from his art-based research in the creation and direction of myth-based Caribbean theater productions he calls Caribbean Mythery. Holgate is also writer, director of the webisode TV series Chill. He directed and co-wrote the film A Jamaican Independence Story for Jamaica's 2021 Independence Day celebrations. The one, the only, Dr. Michael Holgate. Sir, how are you?
I'm wonderful, thank you. How are you?
I am well, I am well. So I
Thanks
wonder
for
if
having
you
me.
could, oh, of course. I wonder if you could as well give us just a brief thing before we deep dive into what you consider your work, your art-based work to, and how it contributes to social change and empowerment.
Shauna, you know, so you can talk because you've been in every
But
single one of my
however,
productions. Me not do no production and don't include you, Shawn-Kae, every
that
time.
is not
But just
true.
talk. Anyway, so, I'm addicted. I'm addicted to you. But anyway,
I love
so the
it.
thing is, my work is about musical theater. It's about edutainment, and it's about Afro-Caribbean culture. And all of that is what I learned and practiced and produce and direct in the Ashe Company. And so interestingly, my thesis, my work, my PhD work, research was around just that. And I coined it Caribbean Mystery, which is really Afro-Caribbean culture, edutainment, and musical theater. So that's really what it comes down to. And I have you know, my favorite new quote I got from Neila Ebhanks. I don't want to say it wrong, so I'll say it proper. I'll look at it. And she gave it to me from Tony Cade Bambara. And it's the job of the writer or the artist is to make the revolution irresistible. And that is really what I believe in. I think that the work that we do must make the revolution irresistible. People must want to watch it, want to read it, want to participate in it. And so it must look like them and feel like them. There goes the Afro-Caribbean culture. It must be didactic in some sense, be teaching, even some directly on multiple levels, some not so obvious, but you know. And then musical theater is the thing that I love. And so I'm using it's physical theater, it's musical theater, and I'm using all of the things that our ancestors would use to partake and to share their message. You know, there's no art for art's sake in Africa. So all of it is part and parcel of everything. So yeah, that's it.
Awesome, thank you. And as I have been, I've had the pleasure of engaging in, I think, a little bit of everybody's art form here. Yes, me used to dance at Jamaica School of Dance, junior department, back into the day. Boy, you know, Leslie, the art part of it never catch me. The drawing part, the shading part, I can color in a coloring book, mind you, but I really can't do that part. But I've been to many shows and appreciate the art form. And as an educator who has taught artists, who has taught social workers, who has taught just development workers, people who try, I find that when interacting, especially with Caribbean people and people who understand that we really need something, as you said, that's irresistible, something that we can feel, see, touch, be a part of. So I wonder if anybody could just tell me, for you personally, what was that moment that you can think about in your history where that click went and you said to yourself, this is it, I'm doing important work through the arts for social change. This was that moment.
I think
Excellent question.
Yes.
from that moment that I thought that I was doing important work. I guess from way back when in Ashe, when we did a production called Vibes in the World of Sexuality.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was
Remember that?
winding up on stage as Uncontrollable Urge, and we took these people through this
Oh,
sexual world, and I am gonna and once you get lots of discharge, and I am syphilis, and and so we taught that way, and so and that was way back when, so people would send us letters, not emails, letters,
That's
and
it.
they would say things like, watching this production, I realized that I had gonorrhea. Stuff like that.
Wow.
And, yeah. And they would say things about abuse, and they would tell us things that they felt safe to tell us because of how we represented that message on stage, and it sent stuff to us. And so it felt good and important from then. And then as time went on, I did not just reproductive health and sexuality type work, but also Blackness, African style stuff, Caribbean stuff, work about the social issues, environment, drugs and family life, community violence, and so on. And so it's about seeing the art as a means of doing what government alone cannot do, what each arm of government alone cannot do. No matter, Ministry of Health cannot do it by itself, justice cannot do it by itself, none of those spaces. And so, you get to a place where you say, we have some very, very important work to do. We just don't have the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think in hearing Michael speak, I realized in my life as artist, and I'm counting that from him before I knew I was an artist. So as a child in performing arts, like with Stella Maris Dance Ensemble, going to JCDC every year, there was something that I recognized about being able to be on stage and to transmit a message of importance. So for example, and it's not just from doing it, but from seeing other schools, like not just Stella Maris, Wilma's Dance Troupe would do works that were about things that people were facing at the time. Stella Maris did the same thing. So we did them in shows as well as we did them in the JCDC platform. So people were using the art, and I was one of those young people on stage, putting my body on stage to speak about issues that I may never have faced, but other people in the country were facing, right? Really very active in terms of that. And I realized the power of it then. I remember Stella Maris did Children of Sisyphus.
Yeah.
Which is Orlando Patterson's work as a full-length ballet. Go Dr. Monica Lawrence, and Dr. DeGrasse Johnson as well, because they all choreographed on it, and Patsy Ricketts. It was more than trying to do something for its own sake. It's a serious political and social commentary work that was taken and put on stage on young bodies, speaking about, class differences in Jamaica and violence and police brutality and all these kinds of things that are very necessary, particularly for like an uptown group to be able to do. So there was the social change within us as well, in terms of a sense of how it can change us and how it can change people who were watching it. And so in a way for me, and of course, looking at Professor Nettleford's work, Dr. Stein's work as I was growing up, there's no moment when I didn't think that my work was not supposed to be about something important, something to shine a light. So once I started to choreograph, yes, I did some things in early out that were just for, you know, practicing the skills of composition. Yeah. But the medium is too powerful for me not to choose to use it for social justice things. And it's not even just social justice. Sometimes I'd said it to someone earlier this week, I think. When I choreograph is something that bothering me. Something is bothering me about what is going on in not even just personal life, in societal life, in community life, in family life. It don't even have to be in Jamaica, but usually in Jamaica, regional, it can be international. And it's bothering me so much. I want to know if other people are feeling bothered. And if you're feeling bothered, or if you're not, can this bother you a little bit, please? Because we need some traction.
Yes.
Let's talk
Can it
about
bother
it.
you a little bit,
Can it
please?
bother
I
you a
love
little
that.
bit, please?
Yeah.
And so particularly over the last 20-something years, particularly since I went and did my master's now, it just added to the idea that you can use the theater to subvert, use it to shift perspective, use it to introduce a new idea, use it for and I don't just mean, because people are used to going to see like theater as plays and that happening. For dance, a lot of times people shut off and watch the bodies and get caught up in all the tricks the bodies can do. But no, we have a very great history in this country of people using contemporary and modern dance for social justice issues. Think of Professor Nettleford with Children of Messiah and all of the work that now Women of Destiny, all the work that has been done before. So, and I think I'm a part of a generation of choreographers who understands that. And we have tried to transmit that to our students as well at the School of Dance. So they do their research-based work and they feel like they have the power to bring social justice things forward. So I don't think it's one moment, but it's kind of like something that bloomed from exposure. Yeah.
Definitely. Leslie?
Shauna, that's such a question. You have me sitting here like, and then Michael spoke and Neila spoke. I realized how we have interesting threads. Michael took me back to my childhood, and I'm like, I remember VCR. I remember that cassette, that tape. My mother bought it, watched it, and I'd watch it with my sister. And we would like emulate that whole thing that he shared. I remember that, and I remembered seeing. I think it was Ashley again. They performed in a church downtown, and there was a critical scene that visually stayed with me, where I guess it talked about molestation, but they used a red cloth. They just threw the cloth up in the air, and the lights went out, and boom. And I was not more than maybe 10 or 11, and I got it visually. I got it, this message.
Yeah.
So for me, I was like, God, when did this start? I think it's just been, I've always been an artist, and I've been exposed to the art forms. I danced with Neila in Stella Maris. So I saw her perform in Children of Sisyphus. So these things, what I would say is more like they were threads or things that were stitched on or ingrained in me by awareness. So going to these shows, my mom taking us to, and her even doing like hosting art shows at church and stuff like that. So there's always been an element of caring for others and considering being empathetic without even knowing what that word is, thinking of others' needs, persons who are less fortunate, what's their voice? That's
right.
been a thing. And then I evolved into being an art therapist. So there's that layer too of having to work with people's emotions and using the art forms as their voice. A very significant moment for me was when I went into an inner city community in Montego Bay with mothers. I didn't know what I was going to get, what their response would be, how would they have responded to art, because our culture views art as you're only skilled to do it, or you stop learning it at a certain age. So if you continue, that means that you only are at a certain level, which is not true, right? It's a part of who we are, it's a voice. So this was a very powerful thing where there was no trust. They didn't trust each other from the community. There were things in terms of social concerns, being a mother, being from the inner city, judgment, all of that. And I found that after 4 days of working with these women, such a shift, a transformation, that I like became emotional afterwards, because I saw, like, you have to understand, as Michael said, you have to understand the culture. You have to understand giving them patience, making them feel human. So that is still a form of social change. Sometimes it doesn't have to be this loud megaphone pumping out to society. It can be just very small in community, giving them a voice. I remember this one lady was just judgmental about if she did something, maybe I would have get her in trouble. And I was like, lady, this is a safe space. And I saw her relax, and she created what she needed to create about her dynamic with her child. And at the end of it, all of them, they were initially no trust. Nobody wanted to talk to them. But then at the end of it, there was this community. You saw how empowered they were as mothers and what they can do moving forward. So I would say from a personal art though, I've always like had a connection with like maybe things with like Africanism, slavery. I remember there's a piece that I did in college. Somebody said to me that there is a tree that they used to hang people on. And I went to the tree, photographed the tree, had a spiritual moment at this tree, photographed friends, superimpose things that we now see digitally. That's so cool, like I did with black and white film, right? To make the body of the girl look like the tree, all of that. And this was like done up. And I remember looking and seeing like the Black students in my class could not look at this thing. And I was playing, it was like a performance art piece. I played, what's your name? Oh God, that song, Strange Fruit.
Strange Fruit.
And it was just this thing, this conversation. So I would say my work is like that, starting, I never actively said, oh, this is what I'm gonna do. It's something that's resonating with me, and then it's gonna show up in the art form, just like the piece behind me. It's like out of frustration as I return to Jamaica and nothing don't change. No water in the catchment area after how many years, I'm gonna do a piece. And so I did a piece called Nanny of the Refuse. And in 2062, 100 years after Jamaica gets independence, there's no change. So that's my art, and more so maybe responding from what's coming up, and do we need to have a conversation
about it? Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I'm picking up from everybody is this idea how art is, it's very personal. It's processed from the inside, and even the change, or so it was kind of hard for everybody to highlight a moment, because it's never like that. Art is not a moment, art is a flow. Whatever it is, theater, dance, drama, it's something that it seeps into your soul, and the change happens kind of within and without. I wanted to highlight just, I think, well, everybody had kind of made a comment about how this kind of social transformation happened for them, or happened in their processing quietly. Well, I picked that up. It's not this loud thing where you can pick up and say, this thing happened from in social transformation and social change through art. It's little things. It's in the quiet conversations between mother and daughter. It is in the conversation between me standing and looking in front of an art piece, having a moment on stage, or having somebody come to you and say, me never know some I've gone area to me see up on stage. That's wild. That's kind of the power of art, is your ability to see yourself and your issue through whatever it is that you're looking at. And I think I wanted to, twofold question. How has it been your experience? How exactly do you think arts-based therapies, like the ones that we're all involved in, helps people to process that trauma and process change? And then I'm going to go and ask, because I feel like some misconceptions may come up in the conversation, but just how you can imagine that it helps people to process. I can start it off. I think this is one of my earlier experiences. When I was involved with university players in Maharani's Misery with Dr. Brian Heap. And he spoke, we did a scene when we're talking about some of the indentured laborers coming over to the Caribbean, and it was done on Philip Sherlock. And we were making reference to how the indigenous Indian or Asian descent women were being sexually abused throughout the passage, before and after and whatever. And there's a powerful scene, and it's funny because you said something about the red cloth that you remember, Leslie. And Michael, I don't know if you remember this scene. We lined up all of the women who were in the cast, lined up on the stage. And there was a moment where we had I don't even remember if it was a red or a yellow piece of cloth. And all the women were strung across the stage. And we just started to, it was a ascending, powerful thing of who split the coolie.
Who split the coolie?
Who split the coolie? Exactly, Leslie, who split the coolie? And I think it took some time because people didn't necessarily understand what is it that we're talking about, like who split the coolie? And then as we crescendoed the cloth we tore the cloth on stage. And I think for a lot of times with art-based therapy, because it is something that is visual, because it is movement-based, because it is something that you can see, you think it's about something else, but it's not. Or what you think it may be addressing, it's not. And I think in a way, that's kind of how art-based therapy helps us to process trauma. Maybe we think we're highlighting something, but that's not the only thing it's highlighting. So much other things are happening internally. So just anybody's viewpoint on kind of how this thing helps us to process our trauma.
I want, before I speak, I just want to say,
go ahead.
I want to make a clarification. So, and particularly because Leslie's here, whatever therapy comes through the arts as I experience it, or as I offer it, is incidental. I am not a therapist. And I have to tell people this. As an educator also, that's not my scope and that's not my wheelhouse. Art therapy, movement therapy, drama therapy are very specific in what it is they do. It's not outcome-based in a particular kind of way. It's not performance-based in a certain kind of way. There are things that are done in a certain kind of way so the awakenings can happen safely. That's different. But it's not to say that there is not the ability, because inherent in the art, because of the catharsis aspect, because of the metaphor, right? Which is what the red cloth was for in the two different works you're talking about. Because of the metaphor, it gets to the part of the human brain that is not about logic, and it's not about protecting, and it's not about illusions and stories. So in seeing the thing in front of you, it awakens your memory, it awakens your imagination. It does something that allows you to be able to face something or see something anew. So it's the power of the metaphor, I think, that's involved in the arts that are not the ones that are verbal as well, because verbal arts are using word and sound have a different kind of, we have different kind of receptors for those. But when you have visual metaphors that deal with color and shape and movement, and they arrest you so much so that you remember them decades later, it's a power of the metaphor that is able, I think, for these kinds of art forms to do something therapeutic, but I wouldn't call them arts-based therapy, because that is a different, distinct discipline. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Neila, because it is important. So I will piggyback on that in terms of the art forms. Let's give them respect that they, as she said, they do have an element of catharsis, it's expression. So some people might use the art forms to work through an issue or work through their own traumas, their own stuff, through choreographing, through a play, through the art, through music, right? So there will be elements of it that will feel therapeutic, but in terms of what the structured or Eurocentric definition, we're now working on what is the Caribbean definition of this, but that's a whole other conversation, of what the art or arts therapy's format is usually with a trained professional who is trained within each art form to understand psychology and understand how each art form can evoke, elicit certain emotions and be done in a safe way and manage, on a level where they work through certain things. So to your question, Shauna, in terms of, I can speak to art therapy and trauma. So the thing that happens, I know you being my social worker, you can help me with this, is that there's a part of the brain that when a traumatic incident occurs, and we always just think trauma is like assault or rape. It can be grief, it can be a breakup, it can be anything that uproots your world. When that incident happens, the part of your brain that usually processes language shuts down. And so we have found in the art therapy that, especially in visual arts, when the person doesn't have the language around the trauma, using the art to help them describe makes it easier, or to frame it. There's a lady in America who she actually has a whole clinic. She has a whole process that I was introduced to as a student, right? The thing with for art therapy now and trauma is that each art material, just like how in Neila's world, whatever the music form, the body going to move to that. How if Michael probably wants to have a dramatic moment, there's a tone, there's a change in his intonation, in his voice, the lighting, everything, right? Within art therapy, the different art materials have different responses, so different textures, different instructions, different things that you have persons do can evoke certain things. We also have what's called reflective distancing. So similar to what Neila said, where here's this image. So a person may create this image, or they may not even have the language, but then when they create it, looking at it, they're like, oh, wait, it gives them clarity, it gives them a voice, it might actually empower them to say, okay, I know what I'm going to do, or I didn't realize this. So that's what can happen in terms of the role of the visual piece and how it is tied to trauma and helping to move forward.
For me, it's about, I just feel that people naturally seek empowerment, and people naturally want to be empowered. And so they go to places that they think empower them. And some of those places are disempowering. So so my premise is that a lot of the times people just don't know. And my job then is to help them to know, remove the stigma so that they can know, give them the history so that they can know, give them context so that they can know, give them information in whatever way, shape, or form, help them to laugh so that they can know, help them to sing so that they can know, help them to see dance and movement so that they can know. And so that is how I see my job. And that's why I'm so drawn to the quote from Tony Cade Bambara when I heard it from Neila, that your job is to make the revolution irresistible, because I feel like that's what I see my job. I've always seen the job of as an artist, my job as an artist as, you know. And so what I do is present these situations, these scenarios, these songs, these dances that I think, okay, the reason they do this is because they don't know that bleaching is not just, I want to look prettier. No, it's more to that. It's because you really and truly think that black is so ugly and disgusting that anything that you can do to elevate yourself, it must be to remove any kind of black from your body. You know, so all of those, so my job is to make them understand that. So that's how I see it, and that's the space from which I operate. And when Neila said earlier that, you know, for everybody, there's a thing that, you know, it triggers you, kind of like, and you want people to, you know, what they think, because it's something that triggers you. Bleaching is that thing for me. I don't know if there's any production we ever do where somebody who now bleach in it or something come up with me. It's just because I think that it is the epitome of self-hate as for blackness, as a black man or a black woman. You know, that just to bleach your skin, to me, that is it. So yeah,
and it's so funny, as you were saying, Michael. I think in the way in which art helps people to process, again, is from maybe because they, in their mind, they're coming to entertainment, that when it actually seeks into their system, it's couched in a non-judgmental, in a fun, and then you kind of you step back and you kind of go, oh, but wait, oh, that one they reach me so, and you know, you're like, oh, okay, I get that. So again, in the processing of whatever our issues or trauma is, I think art-based works really pushes forward the mandate of social transformation and change. I think one of the things, just to kind of bring it back to some of our audience here in terms of development workers, educators, social workers, change agents, somehow they see themselves as different from an artist. And I think sometimes, as we were saying, and absolute respect due to being trained in an art form and having the ability to express through that art form. But I think especially I can remember working with my students, and I referenced it in a writing that I have, trying to run a little production, trying my little hand at directing Michael, and I had to direct something for our unit at UE Mona. And I had some Edamani students with me, some students I borrowed from UDAS, and my social work students. And I found that the social work students themselves were the hardest to deal with. They did not understand that this medium could effect change, or just are we making a mockery of the social issue here that's happening? And for them, there was that disconnect where I found that my more artistic students, immediately, they were in it. So I think one of the challenges that we probably face as people who work in arts-based transformation. I'm taking the note of not trying to dibble-dabble into saying something a drama therapist, art therapist, dance therapist, because not to denounce the work. And we definitely want to respect people's professions and what they train for. Arts-based transformation is that people who operate outside of the work or not immersed in it don't get the sense that this thing you can work. You know, definitely I think in a Caribbean sense, and as Michael said, kind of creating our version of this Caribbean mystery, revamping what Caribbean art therapy, what Caribbean dance transformation is, to understand how it affects our people, because we are coming from a different space. You know, we're coming from that colonial mindset, even though we think we're beyond it. And sometimes, every time, you know, Michael, I definitely can speak to, every time we put on something very black activist, oh, you're artistic, you're black and Afro and all of these type of things. And it's like, are you not? And I think in that way, it's easier, are you not, to pull in people to understand this transformation. Going on that thread, I wonder if we could quickly touch.
Can I just say something very quickly?
Go ahead.
It's interesting to me that a lot of the times it's the artists themselves who are transformed by the production that they're using to transform others.
Yes.
And so that's just as important to me as to, because if, first of all, if it doesn't happen to the artist, then the work is not true. So you have to reach the artist first, because if you don't reach that space where you're working with the artist and then go like, my God, I didn't know that, or I didn't. And, you know, so that transformation takes place with the artist, and then it goes out there when they're performing, because they're performing their surprise, they're performing their shock, they're performing their gestalt, they're performing their understanding, their new refreshing understanding, you know.
Shawn, I wanted to add something to what you're saying. I think what it is, that's interesting perspective what Michael just said, right? But for me, I also see why that is probably happening is, remember, in our culture, we have a dichotomy. So we kind of respect the arts, but the arts must just stay in a corner. It's for entertainment. It's, oh, somebody said, why you do this piece? I can't put it up in my house. Right? Because we're not taught the symbolism in the art. We're not taught the critical analysis within the art form. I'm doing drumming now, and where I have to do group work in my mind and all of this stuff. We don't understand these things.
Connect, yeah.
We put it in a little box. So the artist is going to get it because they understand it. And when I say artists, I don't just mean visual artists. I mean all of the artists, right? The other side of our dichotomy of our culture is we're very maybe rigid and probably suppressed. very like must be in a box, but then we must open up the other side when it's time for the other side to come out. So what you're probably getting is probably people who have not been encouraged to respect and own their own creativity. I like to use this word now, creativity, right? You're a creative. Because when we say artist, they put the levels on it, right? So who are a creative. And Jamaicans are creative. We're so colorful, right? So they're probably not having been encouraged to see that, to have that conversation. Maybe having gone and afterwards there might be some reflection that it comes, then they have to try and connect, but there hasn't been that voice. I've seen it. I've seen where if I show something, I might have to break it down a little bit, you know, and say, all right, from a layman's term, what you think this is, what you think this piece is. And then when I start certain things, then you might see some people who I think wouldn't get it at all. That's it, the conversation starts. So what I'm saying is sometimes maybe there isn't an encouragement from our educational piece. It's like these things are broken away and separated. If we just integrated it into all of our educational levels, the art forms, the importance of it, maybe there would be more of an awareness that is not just entertainment, it is emotional, what do you call that? Awareness. It's working through resolution. It is social change. It is your voice. How can you use this? I worked in a prison setting for girls and I was like, why are we doing the educational structure this way? When I'm in a room and the girls break out into, Michael, you would love this. They broke out into dub poetry, beating on the desk, whatever. And I was like, there's one person, I was like, this is a JCDC competitor right here. So, and I took the head of the prison and I said, why you guys don't try to change the curriculum and have more of the arts? Still give them education, but use the arts. No, look at me, is challenging a system that is already right. So I'm just saying,
please.
so it takes maybe just you plant a seed, but we're also dealing with a cultural thing with so many levels that you're gonna get some of that resistance that you got. But you have to continue to try to use the art as best. Go
ahead, Neila.
Leslie, thank you for bringing that up, because that for me is a thing here, particularly with the way the world is working, because you know everything is microcosm and macrocosm. You have to kind of look at the things and together. You see, imagination is very dangerous to people who want to keep you disempowered. Imagination is extremely dangerous to anyone who wants to keep you disempowered. Anybody who wants you to maintain a system that is not working for people, no matter what they say on the outside, they want to keep you disempowered. And I mean, hey, I work within the education sector in this country, and I will tell you, the point of the education sector is to keep the kids disempowered.
Exactly.
In the way that people have been, artists have been talking, people have been fighting to get art in the curriculum, because we know people are across the island are educated out of their imagination.
Yes.
On purpose. The more imaginative you are, is the more disruptive you are, is the more boisterous you are, is the more of a threat you are, is the more you are disciplined and badly disciplined, is the more you're policed for the height of your afro or the length of your skirt. And it is really upsetting to have been such a part of this establishment at the tertiary level or this institution for such a long time, and still just being able to see systemically, this is a plan. All of the technology, all of the ideas of the press conferences mean nothing, because at the root of it, it is still holding on to what the colonial idea of education was supposed to be for us little slave picnic, which is you are not empowered to do anything. You cannot imagine a new future. You are going to stay locked in this idea. The arts must be separate and are not going to become a part of your life, a part of your liberation, as it was for our ancestors. Because even the ancestors who were brought here as indentured laborers, the arts are ingrained into their religion, into their lives, into their ways of being, into their ways of having survived here. there is no reason why we should not be also infusing how we educate our future Jamaicans, infusing that into it and doing away with this colonial idea that the arts are ornamental. They are not ornamental. The arts are the foundation of your creative imagination being strengthened so you can envision a new future for your nation and yourself. And so I understand why your students from social work would see that it would think that it is not possible. Because their entire educational space has told them it's not possible. And if you didn't show like a spark of artistry somewhere and have a supportive family or community or somebody else, you would never get a chance to feel that and understand the power of it. JCDC, this is the last thing I say on this part of it. JCDC is great for what it is. And I've been there from baby to being adjudicator now. So maybe I'm talking decades now. It's great for what it is, but it also needs to evolve. Because it is showing you how to put on a face, put on a show, go quick, get a medal. No, that's not even the power of the arts.
Yeah.
It would also help the teachers and so on to really harness the deep power of the arts by having conversation, having the students and the teachers and people being able to talk about how this thing changes them. Because at the very least, if the education sector doesn't want to shift, the culture sector can take on that responsibility and put some education within that space. So I think it's really because of what we have inherited. And sometimes you see change and transformation. You know who taught me this? Reverend Conroy Wilson. Change and transformation are two different things.
Yes.
Change just means, you just like you change your bed sheet. You change your bed sheet, it's the same bed frame. If you're going to transform it, you're going to dig up the mattress, you're going to break up the bed frame. Not true.
Yeah.
So transformation means something has to be broken down and remade. You understand? Yeah. And that is very, very scary for a lot of Jamaicans.
Yeah. Caterpillar to butterfly.
Listen, Michael, I was there. You were there.
I know, so Michael, I'm going to have you go.
Yeah,
because you have to
run. But just before I go, I want to say that I'm not so sure. I have an interview. I'm not so sure that JCDC needs to evolve from what it's doing now, as opposed to finding another entity who what is being done or what it is that we need to be done at a certain level, because there's enough transformative power in what JCDC is doing. Let me tell you what I mean. When I say enough, I mean Marvin George has this thing, you see, where he's when I interviewed him for my thesis, he said, Michael, I feel so empowered and proud of anybody who goes on a stage. I can't do the Trinidad. Who goes on a stage because they feel like going on a stage, and who goes on a stage and performs their heart out in any way, shape, or form. Why? Because that's not what we were brought here to do. We were brought here to cut sugar cane. We were brought here to breed and die. We were brought here for other things. Never, ever to go on a stage, on a platform, to be seen, to be celebrated, to be applauded. And so in that context, I can celebrate what JCDC does and giving that platform to people who to change, what they do to focus on that element might be something that maybe an addition to one of the spaces, to one of the modules, one of the forms, but I don't know if they need to do a whole scale reworking of BC to ensure
a conversation here. So
I know part two to the podcast.
I would have to push back because it's not gonna be out of the remit. It's focusing on the development part of it. They do the honor thing and they do the showcasing, but what happens in the middle? That's all it is. That's all I'm asking for.
So that would be the change agents that we're trying to effect through podcasts such as this. That it's for the teachers to teach the teachers, for it to become a part of how it is that we teach at JCDC. It's not just a song, it's not just a dance, it's not just the poem, the piece of theater. It is what we're doing, and I get that is one of the things that this is our work as people who can understand or choose to be effective through this. I know you have a point, Leslie, but I don't know if Michael has a closing point. No, he has to go. Any closing point just from you, Michael, before you leave? We will be here for another 10 minutes and we'll ask our audience to stay with us for another 10 minutes as we try and more fulsomely close out today's session. So any closing words, Michael?
The only thing I would say is that we have to find ways of building audiences that are also interested in this type of work. Because if they're not interested, it not make no sense. You understand? Not most, they may not be just
3:30 first. Michael? Oh dear. See? At Michael, well, we may have lost Michael at 3:30 when he needs to run. Mike? Michael, we're not here there. Yes.
Nothing more than
Spirit said close.
People just want kiki and done. So, but we have to build the audiences that are interested and invested in stuff that we are talking about here, transformation through the art.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Holgate. We'll draw you in for part 2 of this.
Yes, man. 2 of my favorite ladies.
Love you.
All right,
bye. Thank you so much, Michael. Right. I don't know if you let me just address the audience. Thank you so much for being here. We know we would wrap at 3:30. I'm just asking you for 10 more minutes as we close out. There's also a completion survey. If or the members of you can help us just fill that out while we wrap up. So Leslie, do you remember your point that you were trying to make?
I think it's similarly tied to what Michael was just saying, but I was more talking about, I think parts of social change too is also self-reflection. And the ability to, well, maybe the arts makes you reflect on yourself. So change has to happen also within us. The individual, what do you need to do? What can you do? What is your voice? And I find sometimes in our culture, we are stuck. Similar to what Neila was saying, different things she's saying, hey, this is, another person saying this is valid, but how can things be, how can you evolve, right? And I also see where there's a pattern of, because a system might be established or a person might be established, they do not want to change. They don't know how to change. They don't know how to make, whether it is you don't listen to the younger person, or you feel your throne is gonna be taken away. There has to be some sense of humility, and I like that the arts can allow for that kind of just, let me just reflect. How can I change? What's the voice? I feel like I'm shouting to the mountaintops and it's not gonna change. Then let me put it in a play. So I feel like for community to happen, also there has to be an openness with self.
Thanks. Definitely. So as we kind of close out, ladies, I just want to, I know we've kind of said it, but if you could give a word of advice, for lack of a better phrasing, of how we believe here that everyday people or people who have not been involved in the artistic world, because let's be honest, everybody who was on this podcast today, we were children of the arts. And I think that is one of the things that we need to kind of lay clear, especially for everybody else who has joined us online. So for lack of a better phrasing, we come from a privileged space of understanding art and artistic expression. We all have core memories of being at least under 10, being involved in arts. So what about those who weren't? Art was this entertainment, this pretty peripheral thing. And now they're kind of, if they're involved in social change, and they also like this idea, well, wait, but art, how me do this? I don't know if I do this. Do I take my students to watch a play? And as we're saying, that's nice. Do we take them to a dance show? That's nice. But change is not transformation, Neila. So how would you ladies kind of say, how would we have the everyday person or the person who is not involved in art in the way that we maybe are, to get into the process of using arts for social change and empowerment?
I think, okay, so, and Leslie alluded to it and mentioned it a while ago, or earlier in the podcast. Being a human is a creative endeavor, right? You to exist, to walk down the road, you need to make choices. You are a creative being. The things that we use every day come out of someone's creative imagination. The choice of clothes, the kind of colors that you like, those are things. Don't see artistry and creativity as so separate from who you are as a person, right? And from that space and that self-reflection, that standpoint, start to look around at you, listen to things differently, look at flowers differently, look at stuff that's not man-made, because the artistry is already there, and grow your appreciation for those things. Have conversations with your own self about some of those things and why you like those things. So you can encourage conversations with other people about investigating who they are and why they like particular things. Because the truth is, even though change and transformation are different, I think change can lead to transformation.
Yes.
I think change is a first step, right? It's not that you all of a sudden transform. So, but as long as you don't get stuck in change thinking, oh, well, you know, different bed sheets were great. No. So think about yourself. You have to think and see yourself differently. Now, some people may actually have trauma around that based upon how being their fullest selves as children was treated by their family and community, right? But every little child in this country particularly is such a creative, vibrant ball of energy just by virtue of being born on this soil, right? Remember that part of yourself. Keep that part safe and allow yourself to find others who are also exploring that part. So maybe you can go and take a class now. Maybe you can take a pottery class, a photography class, come and do a dance class. You don't have to be a professional. You just have to have an interest and a body, and find it online if you want to. Because I mean, for people being, you know, work hours don't always allow for you to do something in a leisure capacity like that. Go online, watch something different, do a different thing that is in line with the natural creativity that you have, and see how that helps to awaken and align you now to this new trajectory to say, here is how I can use this to be able to fight for, notice, see change and transformation within the spaces that I inhabit. You know, especially if you're an educator. Yeah.
I will share this too. Thanks for that, Neila. In the work that I do, I remember there was a situation where all of us, we were reviewing a case. And one psychologist said, okay, so everybody's speaking about this child and all I'm hearing is negative. Is there a positive person?
We're losing you a bit, Leslie.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hear me now? Okay, so the last piece I said was the person said everybody's saying something negative about this one person. Is there a positive? At the moment they said that to me, that changed my approach. I did not see the individual as the behavior. So I point to this. I looked at, okay, who is in front of me? What is their strengths?
Yes.
What are they showing me that they're like, yes, okay, I am a child of the arts. But I would notice that this particular client would tap their fingers on the chair. And I said, oh, my cousin used to do that, you know, so I know that means that they probably like to drum. And so I asked the child, do you like to drum? And they said, yes. And I won't get into it, but the drum became the thing that was the tool and the catalyst. So I say this today, maybe start to pay attention to what are your own personal strengths or what is the individual strengths. What do they respond to? Do they like water? Maybe that means I need to swim more. Do they like food? Or you see that they have an awareness to come around you when you're cooking. Don't run the picnic. Teach the picnic about fire, danger, but maybe give them a bowl. Maybe help them cut up the thing and start. That cooking is creativity. That is a change. And change don't, as I said, change don't have to be a megaphone. Change is also what is in us, how you view yourself, your identity, who you are. So confidence, you start to cook, you start to do something, and then you see this big thing happening. So starting with who they are, what they like, giving room for that. So maybe if you're in the classroom and you see somebody struggling, you know that they might express themselves in a different way, maybe give them words and let them write down something, or find a song, change the lyrics to the song about themselves. So you're starting to do things that will evoke awareness. You don't necessarily have to be training this. It's just like just giving them that seed as best as possible. Or as Neila said, research. If you have questions and you're not sure, find community, find somebody else who you could work with, like to balance your strength, to give them this voice. As I said, social change is not just megaphone. It can just be, it's your identity, it's your race, it's who you are, how you feel, the message that you want to bring across, or change that you want to see.
Yeah. All right, ladies. Thank you so much for being a part of this awesome discussion. And I think we've garnered so much. We didn't get to talk about everything. We'll never get to finish this conversation. This conversation is a flow, it's a movement, much like development work and social work and development in any type of area that has to do with people. So again, I just want to thank you for coming out and giving us of your time today and sharing a little bit of your knowledge. I know if you just want to quickly say any of your social media pages or where people can find you, you can type it in the chat. I know conversations are happening in the chat. Please sorry if we didn't get to join some of the conversation here, but I wonder if you could just give us your social media pages where we can find your work. And so we'd like to support you. And if anybody needs to reach out to you, they can also do that.
Okay. On Instagram, I'm private for particular reasons, but it's Neila Ebhanks with the ANKHS.
You could have just give them N company.
I could, yeah, I could, but the website is being constructed for a couple of years now. But yeah, so primarily it would be the IG that I am there in that landscape with. And
we can come check you at the Jamaica Dance School of Dance.
Yes, man, I'm there. College. I'm there. My work is there. I'm there. I do have a Vimeo page as well, but that's also private because that's primarily for like grants and so on. But don't worry, website soon come.
And them can find you. Definitely. Leslie?
For the art therapy side, it's Art Therapy JA on Instagram and Art Therapy Jamaica, although the website is being reconstructed now. And I'm also in a space where privately I'm on, as an art therapist, I'm on a break for a little bit privately. But I will be working on some offerings soon. So be on the lookout for that. And then so photography, Leslie Ann Belnavis Photo or Photography, and Element Creative.
Awesome. And for anybody who didn't catch that, don't worry, you can go on our which is at UA Mona Social Work. Wait, no, let me get this right. You see, that is why when you give the host these things to do, at UA Mona Social Work Unit, you will see their ads there. You can get them to just come and find out more about their work and who they are. Again, I enjoy this conversation so much. There's so many things that stick with me. You know, the revolution will be irresistible. It will be televised or social media at this point. The art is wonderful, transformative, and dangerous, and it is awesome. So again, Leslie Ann and Neila, thank you for giving us of your time. To our lovely members on the Zoom call with us, thank you for your time and the allowance to go over a little bit. Any questions or further comments that you have, you can share it with us. I know if you look for Social Work Units, YouTube, you will find the podcast on YouTube. You can find it on our pages. So thank you for tuning into this episode of Threads of Change, Empowering Social Workers podcast, where social workers come together to inspire, empower, and effect positive change. Thanks to our guests, Leslie Ann Belnavis, Dr. Michael Holgate, and Neila Ebhanks for coming together to give us of their time and energy. Our podcast team, Rashad Ford, Ms. Tessie Scott, Dr. Sharon McKenzie, and Dr. Joanna Simpson. Thanks to you, our treasured community, for joining us and sharing your views. Your feedback fuels our mission to spread awareness and create positive change. If you have any questions, stories, or topics you would like us to cover, reach out to us on our social media page at UE Social Work Unit Mona. Please subscribe, share with a friend. And I am your host, Shawn-Kae Burns. We hope that you found this week's discussion engaging and insightful. Until next time, let's continue to shift the narrative surrounding social work and ignite a movement where social workers are recognized for their invaluable contributions. Together, let's elevate the status of social work and drive a positive change in all our communities. I thank you.
Mhm.